There was such song. Okay. All right. Now I'll go to hyper mode because I had decaf. Anyway, hello, welcome everyone to this session around coaching, certification, accreditation, training, education, all those magic words, letters, and things like that. We have about 55 minutes, which means that we'll probably not answer all possible questions, but I will do my best to introduce some basics and give you some hints and tips. But I will just share my very short presentation so we can have some structure. And then you should be able to see it now. Yes, give me thumbs up if you can see it. Perfect. So welcome, coach training, certification, and accreditation, the Clarity Workshop. Feel free throughout the presentation to use the chat. If you have any ongoing questions, use it also as a networking tool. So you know where you are. If you see someone who is in the same location as you, just tap them if you want. And then there will be plenty of time at the end to answer all the potential questions. But I will usually pause now and then to just see how fast or slow I'm going and if you're keeping up with me. And then enter one person. Super. So why am I? And there's a disclaimer here. So maybe let's start with why am I talking to you? I mean, I had this crazy idea seeing a lot of questions in the Slack. And sometimes I saw some information, and I can still see some information when some companies promote themselves, which may not lead you to the best choice for yourself. And we'll talk about this in a moment. And I spent now nearly 20 years in corporate L&D, so I used to be an expert in learning development, but when it comes to choosing training, I think that I know one or two things that might help, and it definitely helped me. I did more than 200 hours of coach training now. I'm accredited by the ICF and by the MCC, and we'll get to those magic letters in a moment. But I still teach other coaches, I mentor, and I supervise. And here comes the disclaimer. You will know when you see some of my maybe social media presence that I do teach in one of the coach training institutions. However, you will not hear its name today. There is no mention in the slides at all. This is not a selling event. I just wanted to be upfront. I'm not selling anything today, and I always believe that you will make the right choice for you, given the parameters that are the best for you. But I wanted to just say disclaimer, I'm not selling myself here. So without further ado, let's go. Agenda, welcome, more than done. Then we have clarity on coach education and training. Then we have a clarity on certification versus accreditation. Then we have a clarity on selection. And then we have ask the day away, meaning ask me anything. So one important thing is whenever you think about moving into coaching, doing anything related to coaching, is that coaching is not a regulated business, which is important because everyone can be a coach. And it has a positive thing, meaning that everyone can try and do it. But it can be a negative thing because the way our profession is perceived is a bit biased because we know that there are organizations and people who claim to be coaches that may actually not do coaching. However, having said that, it's also important because the list of the recognition bodies that you see is just a sample. It's just picking those that are maybe the most recognized or the most significant in the industry. You will have, and this is just a spoiler alert, you will have a lot of organizations who teach coaching, that give certifications, not accreditation, but because this is not a regulated industry, there is an element of, well, what I would like to say, freedom, I would put it like this. Having said that, there are ways and criteria, and we'll talk about this today, to choose the education training that is fit for you, that is certified, that is high quality, and that will give you the opportunity and the eligibility to be accredited. So, and I will share the link to those that you can see in a PDF in a moment. So I've listed those that are the most recognized because of their number, the brand, their standards, and or their geographic location. So the most recognized in the world is obviously the International Coaching Federation, the ICF. The second one is European Mentoring and Coaching Council, the EMCC. And immediately what is important is these are the two bodies that give you accreditation. Association of Coaching, European Coaching Association, and European Association for Supervision and Coaching are smaller organizations, and you can become members, but they don't give you accreditation. And if you're specifically thinking about the US market, then there is a Center for Credentialing and Education that gives you a title of Board Certified Coach. Actually, they give other board certified titles, but for coaches, this is the US market primarily, and you will get a board certified coach. So you can immediately see some small differences. And I will talk a lot about the accreditation based on the ICF and the MCC, simply because they are the most important two bodies in the world. ICF currently has more than 110,000 members. Not all of them are accredited. We will get to that in a moment. EMCC is slightly smaller, but it's expanding globally beyond Europe. Anyway, we'll share the links and we'll explain how to really use those organizations for your own benefit. So you can see, and I will share the links in a moment, and you will immediately see that those bodies will really help you navigate your journey in the selection. The easiest thing is around coach education versus training, in a way. It's tomato, tomato. So coach education is, the word education is used only by the ICF. The word training is used by everybody else. So coach education versus coach training is exactly the same, with the small asterisk that if you apply to ICF, if you deal with the ICF, you will see coach education rather than coach training. It has changed over the last 2 years. It used to be training, but now it's a coach education. However, this is still the same thing. The detail is important here. Whenever you start navigating coach training and education offers, you will see a lot of companies saying, we are accredited, we have the accreditation, we give you certificate. What is really, really important, and we'll get to this in a questionnaire that I kind of prepared for you, is to ask really what they really offer you when you ask for training. You've seen probably a lot of comments around something which is very simple, CCCE. They are continuous coaching education unit. And just because the company is accredited to give you this, doesn't mean that the training is really giving you eligibility to apply for accreditation. This is the biggest difference. Whenever you go for any coach training or education, you need to double check if the training will give you eligibility for the accreditation if you want to have it, or is it purely for your coaching continuous education? It's only used for your renewal of the accreditation. I've seen few organizations saying we are triple accredited, which is true. But for example, ICF only approved their CCE, and it doesn't lead you to accreditation. So what for you is important, if you ever consider being accredited, it means that your coach training needs to be either level 1, 2, and 3, and I will show a website in a moment and we'll walk through this, meaning it needs to give you the eligibility, hard word, even with coffee, for the accreditation path. So it needs to be full training with full number of accredited hours. The smallest number is 60 hours. That's the smallest number, which is level 1. Remember, 60, if someone offers you less than 60 contact hours, this is not a training that will give you eligibility for accreditation. 60 is the minimum, at least in ICF. With EMCC, it's easier in a way that they have only one abbreviation, which is EQA, which means that this company is approved to offer you training that gives you eligibility for EMCC accreditation. In the past, and sometimes as a legacy, you may see some different letters like ACTP, ACTSH. However, if you see them, disregard them, and I will share with you the website where you basically go and double check the provider if the training is approved for those 2 types of accreditation paths. So this is the key for you to remember from this slide. If you decide to go for accreditation in the future, you need to remember that CCE units do not offer you path to accreditation per se. This is continuous accreditation. What offers you path is a full training with minimum 60 coaching contact hours, either at level 1, 2, or 3, or with the EQA, meaning the approved provider by the EMCC. And that really leads me to the last part. When you choose your training provider, you need to remember that both the provider and the program needs to be approved, and the accredited number of hours needs to be approved. So these are the important things. Because imagine that we open the training school, we offer you coach training. However, not all our programs might be accredited, but we as an organization, we are accredited. So it's a three-layer cake. Is the provider accredited? Yes, no. Then you make a decision. If you want to go with the approved accredited, you go for it. Then the second layer is the training approved or not, or accredited? Yes, no. If you want to go for yes, then the last layer of cake is that how many of the hours of the training are accredited and eligible for your accreditation. That's really important because you need to have, as an ICSS, 60 contact hours, which means that you need to actively spend 60 hours in the training, which always is a tricky part for some providers, because maybe they will tell you, oh, you need to write an essay for 25 pages about code, things like that. So if we just move to the next one. Now, this is the magic thing: certification versus accreditation versus membership. The easiest thing is you can be member of anything. You can be a member of ICF by just paying a membership fee. Anyone can be a member. You can be a member without being accredited or certified. So membership is not equal to certification or accreditation. This really is an important distinction here. Now, when we think about certification and accreditation, it is still not super clear generally, because you will have a lot of providers and it's not regulated. However, it's safe to say that currently, as of now, when you think about accreditation for coaching, the two bodies, the ICF, the International Coach Federation, and the European Mentoring and Coaching Council, so those 7 letters, these are the 2 accrediting bodies in the world that give you the accreditation. And accreditation means something bigger than certification. When we think about currently how accreditation is done, it means that you become a member, but it doesn't mean that you're accredited. To be accredited by the ICF and EMCC, you need to follow the process for accreditation, which means that you need to have specific number of hours of accredited training, specific number of hours of the accredited mentoring with the coach mentor. Then you need to submit to something which is called performance evaluation, which, for example, for ICF, is the recording of your session, or it's a certificate that you passed the exam with the provider. We'll get to this detail in a moment. For EMCC, you provide, for example, 2 pieces of feedback from your client. In both bodies, you need to provide a certain number of experience, meaning the number of hours. The lowest threshold for any accreditation is 100 coaching hours with client, and 75 of them need to be paid hours. That's the minimum that you can apply for the lowest for the lowest accreditation level. Then there's a knowledge exam. So with the ICF, you will also have to pass the coach knowledge exam, which is currently, I think it's 180 questions, the 3-hour exam that is provided, and it's audited by the external examining organization. And the last element in your accreditation journey is additional requirement, which usually is adhering to code of ethics, reflective practice, which you need to submit, and your ongoing development. So as you can see, accreditation is a journey, not one stop. It requires you to collect a lot of elements from training, your mentoring, your performance, your experience, your knowledge, and some additional requirements. So to be very, very simplistic, accreditation is bigger than certification. Certification usually means that you've completed a singular program, or for example, curriculum that is For example, you can be a certified life coach, a certified executive coach, because you completed a training that gives you a certificate at the very end. But it's not the same as the accreditation. Very often you've got training institutions that are certified, and they will issue a certificate. So you can be a certified coach, but it is not the same as accreditation. So remembering about the accreditation being the bigger thing, that certificate or training is the element of your accreditation portfolio. And this is really, usually when you go for accreditation, it takes time, takes effort, takes money, and we'll talk how to choose the correct or maybe the best program for you. But this really is usually much bigger than, I don't want to say simple certification, but certification or certificate for your training is just an element. So obviously, if you completed the training, you can say, I'm a certified coach, and I'm still in the journey of being accredited, right? So it doesn't exclude one another. It purely is a different thing, which is always interesting when you look at profiles of some people are saying, I am a certified coach, which is great. It's not a lie, obviously, but it's a slightly different thing than being accredited. It's the same for being a member of the, for example, ICF or EMCC. You can be a member, but it doesn't mean that you're accredited. It doesn't mean that both of those bodies have reviewed your performance, your knowledge, your experience, and they gave you the seal of approval for your coaching, ethics, practice, and the quality. And how to choose the right course for you. So before we go into your personal sort of question, this is the criteria that I would encourage you to really think about when you ask a provider. How many hours is or are included in the training? And how many of these hours are eligible for the accreditation? So this is for anyone who wants to go for accreditation. And I will share a link where you can verify that. I'm not saying anyone is lying, but both on the ICF and EMCC website, you can check if the provider is accredited and if the training program is accredited and for how many hours. This is really important, especially when you think about, okay, was it CCE? Was it level 1? Am I confused? Then it will be easy just to go on ICF website, type in and check the provider and see if the program is really accredited and with the number of hours. Then ask the provider a question, how many of these hours are practice? Coaching is not swimming. It is like swimming, sorry. You can read all about this, but then you can still get into swimming pool and not really be able to swim. So how many hours of your training are really practical hours? Because this is really important. This is where you learn. This is where you have a chance to practice in a safe environment, get feedback from other people, from your mentors, from supervisors, from teachers. And that's where you really become a coach. And how interactive is the course if this is asynchronous or synchronous? So if you decide to go online, ask what does it really mean? Online is not the same as online, right? You may be asked to just complete some individual e-learning on the module versus there is a session every week or 2 weeks where you meet other people, you interact, you have a full-on coaching experience. So these are the 3 important questions about the training hours. And then the second is mentoring included in the course? So you will see prices, different prices of different courses. And it's a very, very important question to ask. How many mentoring hours are included in the price? And are those hours individual or group? 2 things here. For the accreditation, you have to have certain number of mentoring hours. Usually it's 10. 3 of them need to be individual. 7 of them can be in the group. However, and the price of the course may be very different if they tell you that, oh, the mentoring hours are not included, you need to pay separately. Because mentoring hour is usually charged at least the same as coaching hour at more or less higher end rate. So suddenly the course may become much more expensive if they tell you that actually mentoring hours are not included. So double check it and really make sure that you choose wisely, thinking about the price. Obviously, then the next question, does the course allow me to apply for the ICF, EMCC accreditation? If yes, on which path? Tricky thing. However, there is a great difference here. Depending on which accreditation the training has, or the accredited provider has, you may need to provide recorded session with your submission or not. So if you don't remember, if you don't want to remember the details, what is it, this program or that program, you can simply ask, after completing this training, do I need to submit my recording to ICF or not? Because that is an important thing, not that you will hide something, but it means most likely that the training provider has the accreditation that allows them to review your recording and give you seal of approval, which means that you don't have to submit to ICF, but your mentor and supervisor in the training company will approve it as an, obviously meeting all the bars and standards, will approve it at the ACAC, PCC, or MCC level. What it means for you, it means that yes, you still need to record your sessions and you still need to obviously pass the quality, but for the submission to ICF, it means two things. The time of your review is shorter, because if you don't submit the recording, the time is shorter when you get your accreditation, and the cost is lower. So two things, but also other things as well. But this is really important when you ask about the path. And two softer questions: what support do you offer to course participants? So is this just training, or do you offer anything else? Do you have any community where you can meet other people, other coaches, any meetups, any events? This is a social element of learning and being and becoming a coach that is really, really valuable to you. Becoming a coach is great when you have your whole community to tap into, meet a peer group, talk about your challenges, because it's a bloody tough journey, and it can be really lonely and it can be really hard. And especially when you feel like, oh, how do I get my 100 hours? Oh, how do I do this? Where do I get info about that? And having a community, people that you can turn to and ask, is a critical element. And the last part, what are the requirements to graduate from the course? So remember that just because you sign up doesn't mean that you will get the paper at the end. Really, it's important for you to recognize and remember what are the criteria for you to graduate, to get certificate. Usually it's attendance. You need to have most likely and hopefully more than 80%, ideally 85 and more. Recording or performance evaluation, so which is the case in your training, or do you need to write any papers, or do you have to do anything else? So when you compare course A with course B, with training C, with education D, you want to have all those details, because price does not always tell you everything. You will see training for 2,000 euros, 10,000 euros, and 20,000 euros. And then you need to dig deeper to understand what the price really includes, because that will give you a better chance of making sure that you make the choice that is right for you rather than the provider. Which leads us to the kind of last thing before we start turning into your questions. When you start thinking about coach training, ask yourself at least this set of questions. What is most important to you? When you think about coach training, because it's not in life, we're not coaching here yet. Do you prefer online or in person? And online versus online, right? What do we mean by online? Is it interactive like we're doing it now? Or is it I will go on the e-learning platform and do something? The second one should not be the option for coach training. How much time can you spend per week learning? So we see options when you have weekly meetings, when you have intense full week on, different things. But how much time can you spend learning per week? What is your preferred way, really? Is it the intense thing, or is it spread across the months? You decide what is the best way for you. How do you learn? Remembering what I said about coaching and swimming, coaching is best learned when you practice, fail, dust yourself off, get up again and do it again, and coach another person and coach again. Practice makes perfect here. So you want to, as much as you can say, I love learning by writing or reading or watching, it's a great point. And then say, and where will I actually learn by practicing? Because practice will be important. Do you want to speak with a trainer first before deciding? So an open and honest training provider, majority of them will have no issue with you talking with anyone who works as a trainer. Don't be afraid, don't be shy. ask for a call, chat for half an hour, ask your questions, get the flavor for these people. Because you will spend probably a few months or definitely 60 hours with the people in the room. They will teach you. So you want to make sure that you feel that you can trust them in a way and you really think that they can offer you something that you need. And do you want to check in with the previous participants before the signing? So come on, Google is the world and the whole community in the world. Ask for Google, look for reviews, ask our great community. I'm sure, you know, people have completed various coaching training. Ask other people for feedback. Obviously, everyone is unique, everyone is different, and will have different perspective, but you may get few more pieces of information before you decide. And to be honest, really, really, I cannot stress enough. Don't just look at the price. Dig deeper. Don't buy just don't go for the label. Even if it's very expensive in quality and luxurious looking training, maybe it is. But just ask a few questions to understand what you're paying for. I've heard some terrible stories, some shocking stories, and remember, do not feel pressed to buy any training. Because it's such a profitable business now, let's be honest, right? And a lot of people want to train as coaches. There are unfortunately some bad actors, as we call them in the market. When I've heard people sharing that someone was pestering them daily to sign up and pay $5,000 for something. So really remember, do not go for that. Really take your time, consider a few options, because you will have an amazing journey. You will become a great coach if you choose the program that is right for you, not for the training provider. That was a very short, because I wanted to spend enough time giving you option to ask, because I'm sure you have a lot of questions, and we can go into specifics, obviously, of everything that I shared. But that's something in a nutshell. I will share in a moment, when I stop sharing my screen, the PDF with the links. This is just the beginning. I didn't want to confuse you going deep down into details of those different levels, 1 to 3. We can obviously dive into them now, but that is the nutshell overview of where we are with the coach training, education, certification, and I forgot the last one. There you go. So let me just go back here. Okay. So let's go to question. Oh, we have one. Okay, wait. Do you have any questions? So what do you think about questions? One correction, and thank you, Liam, for correcting me. So actually, when you go for association for coaching, you can still get accreditation. So let me just share the link. Hopefully, it's okay if I share the link. Super. Just to see that's how it is. And let me just share as well. Document with you. When you think about going for coach training, what are the things that you are currently maybe most, I don't say confused, but you would like to get most clarity around? Is there anything that jumps at you? Sharing the link, so I'm sharing that. Okay. You can grab, by the way, the PDF with the links to those main bodies in the chat. Does coaching accreditation give any benefits for L&D manager on the market? I think that, and I'm inviting the whole group, I think it depends. It obviously brings more value to your profile, right? As an L&D expert with additional coach accreditation, definitely, from my perspective, you are much more valuable in the market. And obviously, you are much more knowledgeable, right? You have new tools to work as an L&D manager, to maybe think about offer that you can introduce in the company where you work. But definitely, it's an additional asset that you have on your profile, additional knowledge. And I think that vast opportunity for you even to come up with wild ideas like internal coaching programs, supporting your employees. So that doesn't harm. I would say, yes, That was a long-winded answer to give you the answer. Yes, it does benefit. It does give you benefit on the market. Thank you for the question. Any other question when you think about coach education training?
I have a question, and sorry to have joined late. I was curious for you personally, is there something you have found, particularly rewarding about the process, and maybe something that you found more challenging?
Let's start with the positive and then constructive. So rewarding is definitely learning a lot about myself, surprisingly, because you spend a lot of time reflecting on your practice and how you do things and how you interact with people. And then you notice things about yourself that are useful to you and in your coaching practice. One thing. Second thing is that you meet really amazing people, other people who are pursuing the coach training. And if you choose organization that maybe operates and offers a global approach than maybe local, you will meet people from different cultures, countries, and that is really a rewarding experience because it really helps you as well because you practice a lot coaching with the people. You meet up, you peer coaching, you group coach them, and it's really, really amazing how you can gain a new perspective while just leaving your traditional zone and meeting people who are very different than you and sometimes who even react differently to words that we think mean the same to all of us, especially in coaching when words are so important. And when we coach in languages that might not be our native language, that's an additional interesting point. So reflection of myself, meeting great people, mentoring, definitely, because you meet people who are wiser and better at this, and they give you great insights. And as much as it was challenging, it was also rewarding going through the ICF and EMCC accreditation processes, both. So I've gone twice through the ICF for my ACC and PCC, and with the EMCC for my senior practitioner, a lot of theses, I know. And initially it feels like, oh my Lord, the whole system, and I need to do all of those things and paperwork and stuff. But then it gives you, this really gives you a lot of opportunity to reflect. And they have a very different approach, not very, but they have different approaches. ICF is very ICF specific, and EMCC is more about reflection and about, you thinking about your cases and your learning. ICF is really slightly different, I would say. There's less reflection, there's more process, but that's just my experience. But both processes, especially when you go through both of them, for me were challenging but rewarding because I learned a lot again about my coaching practice. And it pushed me out of my comfort zone, especially with things like how do I get to my 100 hours? Ooh, I went crazy with things like I offered pro bono coaching on LinkedIn in 2020. Every day, 1 hour for free. Anyone? And I shared the link. I would never have thought about this in my life previously because I am a shy person, surprisingly. So these were the rewarding things. The challenging thing is, I think when you grow, when you learn, you sometimes feel like, oh, I suck at this, right? That just was my experience sometimes. Oh, this session really wasn't. Oh my God, what did I just say? Oh my God, did I ask this question? Lord Jesus, how come, right? So you have moments when you feel like you are maybe not the worst coaching the work, because we've seen them on YouTube, but maybe you feel like, oh my God, I don't think I can do it. Or maybe I'm not good enough, right? So you have those moments of doubt. And then you overcome them. You go back to a quiet day, or maybe you meet your peer group, or maybe you meet your mentor, and then you go back again, and then you realize that coaching is complicated and simple because sometimes it's about chemistry between people. Sometimes I say I'm not Coca-Cola, not for everyone, not every day. But initially you feel like I'm a coach, I should be able to coach everyone, right? And then I got into feeling like, oh, maybe I'm not good enough because this session really wasn't good or wasn't nice here. So the challenge is really about confidence, especially in the beginning, right? But then you overcome it, then you learn how to navigate this, you go to supervision, you get deconstructed by your supervisor, and things go smoothly from now on. Well, not smoothly, but better. But hopefully that answer give you a bit more idea.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's very
Super.
helpful.
I have seen a few questions in the chat, so let me just more familiar with the MCC training accreditation route than I'm with ICF. What would you say are the relative benefits of training accreditation with each of those? Oh, good question. We get a lot of questions around EMCC versus ICF. From my perspective as a person who offers both, so the training that I offer is accredited by both EMCC and ICF. I don't have difference in the content. The difference is that how you mentor, supervise, and how you explain core competencies. So both of those bodies have those core behaviors and competences. And when we coach, we need to make sure that we embody those competencies. And there is a slightly different approach to how they are embodied, how they're explained, how we pass them as a marker. So for me, the difference in terms of training is very minimal in terms of I don't differentiate content EMCC versus ICF. There is a difference in terms of accreditation. And there is a perception sometimes we say that how do you dent your coaching style to make sure that it fits within the ICF dance floor sometimes? Because you've got certain set of markers that you need to hit or you need to show in your coaching work. And I know sometimes explaining to other people and to myself was you coach the way you coach and not get obsessed with those ICF markers. You will get them when you understand them fully, when you learn how to use them in the coaching language, and then let the natural flow happen rather than thinking that this is ICF, this is EMCC markers. When you go into session, you need to tick bam, bam, bam as you go through the session. So the difference is in the mindset. The accreditation with the ICF is much more complex. It involves the exam, the performance evaluation, the coaching hours thresholds are higher for ICF than for the EMCC. And I think these are the main differences. The EMCC process is different because it puts more emphasis on reflection. So there's no recording you need to send, feedback from the client, but you need to spend a bit more time writing your personal statement, reflecting on your practice, providing details around your continuous education. So it's really much more introspective process than the ICF, where you really think, okay, that's the process. These are the things I need to do. It doesn't take away from the quality of your coaching, but it's a different approach. Then we have a question. I have an ICF PCC level 2. Well done. Accreditation. How do I check what more is a requirement for EMCC senior practitioner? And how necessary to have EMCC with? So the first question is around checking requirement. So you always check requirement going to the, and I will do it hopefully simultaneously. So in this case, there's a question about EMCC senior practitioner. So EMCC, European Mentoring and Coaching Council. So accreditation details on the website will always, and I will just put the link here. EMCC is a bit clunky, but you know, it's just maybe not clunky, the different approach. So for the EMCC accreditations, you will go to this website and you will go, usually they have a PDF to download, which provides you with the comparison of requirements for each of the level of accreditation. The differences will be about the level of the number of hours of coaching experience, the number of hours of your coach training. These are the main differences when you think about the levels difference between level 1, level 2, or practitioner and senior practitioner, as they are said in the EMCC. So that's the first question, and the requirements may change. So please make sure you check them, and I will in the same time drop you a note to the ICF requirements, which are easier to find. So just bear with me 10 seconds. But the second question is, what is the benefit of having EMCC with ICF? Very bluntly, I mean, the difference, there's no difference. It's more like having a complementary title in a way, an accreditation. So as historically, EMCC was more focused on Europe and ICF on the global approach. Then I would say historically people thought that ICF is globally recognized, EMCC is Europe-wise. I would say just offers people, and especially in this market, a bit more understanding that you pursued both accreditations, you are recognized by those two most recognized bodies in the world. And so that's from the marketing perspective, maybe, but from the personal perspective, just because the process is slightly different, I would say the benefit is also additional that you spend a bit more time reflecting on who you are as a coach and what you practice. So that's the additional benefit outside the marketing. And then we have a question. I already have some coaching teaching skills, but they all come from self-study and experience. So are these courses that are geared towards people like me who already have experience, or are they usually aimed at people just starting out in the field? Tricky question, because I wanted to say something else. So the courses will be geared towards people with different levels. You will have coach fundamentals training, for example, that are towards people who have no skills or previous experience. There are options limited this year, and it will finish this year, for people who have some previous coach training that is not accredited by ICF to be grandfathered, as they say, on the path to accreditation. We'll explain that in a moment. But to my knowledge and awareness, you will still need, because this is, well, no, I'm confusing myself. I would probably speak with the provider. That's probably the most open answer I would have. Explain your situation to the course training provider and see what the response is. They wouldn't cheat ICF or MCC, but they may offer you something that is maybe custom made. I can think about, for example, enrolling you to a short course that is self-study for basic in the philosophy where I teach, for example, and then we would allow you to join the cohort that starts with the higher level of coaching skills. That is one of the solutions I can immediately think of, but I would need to probably understand more your personal situation. So answering your question in not probably clear-cut way, I would say, if you see a training or organization that offers training that you like, maybe ask them what is the offer that you can get from them, given your experience in your particular situation. There are ways to really accommodate within the ICF and the MCC framework. And then we have a question. I see different titles for coaches: transformational, leadership. What do those flavors actually mean in the real life? Ooh, we are recorded, so I need to be politically correct. Very often those titles are reflection on two things. What kind of training the particular person completed. And we know there are, for example, diploma in transformational coaching. We have diploma, of course, in leadership coaching. So very often that's just a reflection of what particular content someone completed. And transformational usually will be around sort of dynamics in terms of helping people transform their lives professionally or personally. Leadership, as the label says, usually those will be training focused at, I read leadership group already, so coaching executives, or coaching people who want to become leaders. So there's a slight difference here. So what those flavors usually mean in real life, to be politically correct, they mean, to be honest, yes, they mean that someone completed specific training or someone is targeting specific niche in the market. Because we also see, and obviously you've seen, that some people have those titles, and this is speaking to the target audience, target client, right? So I can position myself as a life coach or life coach for me, the 40s men who want to have freedom in their life. I just phrase it, but that's something that I can coin, and that would be my marketing pitch, but also representation of what I do. And the second question was, how do you protect your energy during coaching? Being in people partner role and dealing with a ton of people all day, coaching can be emotionally draining. Coaching can be emotionally draining and really tough job, because yes, and that's the other thing, you spend days and hours with real people and you deal with their real life. So there's a huge responsibility for the choices you make in the session and afterwards. So it's good to have supervisor where you can go and talk about maybe more challenging cases, a peer group, formal or non-formal, where you can just go to if you need to talk about particular cases, and you need to block in your me time. So finding the ways that you replenish your energy and making sure you don't let those spaces in your day be booked by something else, because it's a short-term solution. I've been there, done that, and it backfires. You're not able to provide good value when you're just basically thinking like dying. So making sure you find your way. I go to the gym every day and I have 1 hour walk during my lunch break, because otherwise I would not be a good coach, because I would be grumpy and maybe tired and maybe other things. So just finding your own way to replenish the energy. And the next question, what was your transition like from corporate L&D to your own coaching practice? Did you just quit your job and jump in the deep end, or did you build a part-time practice before jumping to full-time? Excellent question. My story is unique because I got a job that I thought would be the job of my life, like in Devil Wears Prada, and I hated this job, and quit this job and had a burnout. So a bit of a complex situation. But then when I recovered, I said, and that's true. To establish your own coaching practice, financially sustainable, you need to project around 2 years of working before you actually reach this point. Probably 2 years and more now, given the market that is happening. And I can send you, there's a brand new published yesterday ICF report on coaching industry. Will show you how much coaches actually earn. So for me, it was then thinking, how do I build my practice while not really relying on my husband to provide food, right? Because I'm an independent man. So I took a part-time job, and while working part-time as an L&D expert manager, I was slowly building my practice, my network, my experience, my training. That was my way. I know people who quit, jump into this, but as I always say, like everyone who does the career transitioning, think about your individual situation, because we know and we've seen ideas how it may work, but the reality sometimes is different. So just to avoid the moment when you, after 3 or 4 months, feel like, oh my God, what am I going to do now? Plan, coach yourself, prepare, and think about, think about all those challenges that are ahead in terms of making sure this really provides you with the sustainable and pretty reasonably stable source of income, because it is a really competitive market now. And then we have a question, would previous experience and training in psychotherapy and certification in clinical psychology give you sort of certification as a coach, or reduction in number of hours needed for certification? So if you have qualified as a psychotherapist or psychologist, again, formally, if this training was recognized by the ICF or EMCC, yes. If not, no. However, having said that, until the end of this year, as far as I believe, ICF offers something that would be called ICF onboarding, which means that if you completed certain number of coach training hours, even non-accredited, some coach training organizations are accredited to use these hours and count them towards your total coach training. So imagine that you've completed 25 hours during your psychologist training, which was, for example, coach training, group coach, or something like that. Then the organization may see, okay, we see in your certificate you have 25 hours, so you need to complete 35 with us to get you 60 for the ICF. However, having said that, not every coach training accredited company will offer it, will be eligible to do it. And I think this is the only year where actually you can do it. But answering your question, if the training is not accredited, as a rule, no, it would not give you, the hours. To confuse you, but to complicate it a bit, ICF offers a path if you completed non-accredited training. Full path for a person who has not completed. It's a bit lengthy path, because you would need to get all the transcript for your training, would need to describe how the training really matches with the core competencies of the ICF. So it's a lengthy process. It's not impossible. It's just mass lengthy. Sorry, not this language. It's lengthy, it's more complicated, and it requires much more work. And we have a great comment from Liam. I can see here. Liam, thank you. So we have a coaching mentoring practice at Oxford Brookes. designed for people who have experience in relevant field. They enable you to integrate your existing experience with theories of adult learning. Perfect. Thank you for sharing. Yes. And they have a great doctorate program as well. But yeah, thank you, Leon, so much. What do you find is the most effective way for you to find work clients? For me, right, David, as you're asking me. What do you think about coaching platforms like BetterUp, CoachUp? Ooh, the meaty question. The market is evolving, has been evolving rapidly. And as you've seen, I shared the number, more than 100,000 coaches currently only with the ICF. The market is competitive. And the market is evolving because it used to be mostly private practices, right? I'm a coach, I have my private practice, my clients, but then boom, the industry happened. Good and bad, but you have those large coaching organizations like BetterUp, Coach Hub, Ezra Coaching, or a few others, which naturally take a lot of clients from the market. Maybe clients who would never go for coaching, maybe clients who would potentially go for coaching, but now they have this option. So I would say what I think about coaching platforms, they exist. Some of them are really great partners to work with. They offer you great opportunity for your own development as well and practice, and opportunity to meet and coach amazing people. I met really, truly amazing people working with few of those partners. So that's my opinion. And what is the most effective way for me to find work clients? This is a never-ending story of finding your niche, which I have a slightly different view, but I will not share it here because it's politically incorrect. Two things: be authentic. I know it sounds like a cliche, but people come to you for coaching because of you. You can talk about how great you are, but if you're not really great, then they won't return. So I always say being is selling. So don't tell me how good you are, show me how good you are, and then be yourself. So one of the only constant thing on my website is my part called My Story. I keep changing other things, but my story doesn't change because we know that people relate the stories of your transformation, the stories of your life, and that's your biggest asset. Because there might be 25,000 solution-focused coaches and 7,000 transformational coaches, but there's no one else like you. No one else in the world like you. Even your twin brother or sister, they have not the same, exactly the same life experience as you. So that's your biggest asset. But then it's about how you tell the story, how you connect with people. There are great tools. For me, it's networking, pro bono coaching, L&D shakers, right? Meeting people like you, being visible to people and sharing their stories, being on podcasts, writing a book, watch out, it's out November this year. Different things, because people need to recognize you and really get to know you, right? So marketing works, but marketing for our business is word of mouth usually. Obviously, yes, you can have social media if you want to, and I'm not saying it doesn't work. Probably for some coaches it does work, but it's also about finding your unique way of doing it. Because I'm sure we've all cringed, right? Looking at some videos and photos and think like, wow, that is amazing. I'm so jealous. You earned $250,000 sitting at the pool, right? But answering your question in a short way, be you, don't sell, just be, and get to know as many people as possible and let them experience how you coach. Because that at the end of the day will give you the return. You will meet the people who really are your client. Because at the end of the day, you want to meet people who really connect with you and you with them, right? Because that's the chemistry there. That was a long answer. I'm sorry, I'm passionate because about this aspect. Do you have any other questions? I know we are nearly at the end of the hour, but what I want to share is the last slide because maybe that will come handy some form. If you want to stay connected, again, I'm not telling you, just if you have any questions, you can just scan this QR code. Some of you are connected with me, I know, I see you. But if you're not, and if you want to stay in touch, just connect with me. LinkedIn is my only social media. But if you have any question, you can also pop them in the Slack channel. Maybe we can just exchange there. Don't be afraid to ask. The whole ICF, MCT, and other accreditations is a complicated word, and it has changed for ICF over the last year. And it's not clear to everyone, and sometimes it's not even clear to us, the teachers who need to ask ICF for some clarification. So it's not the easiest way. It's not the easiest sometimes to find your perfect training, but you will find this really. Really, 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 you need to don't go for the shiny objects. Ask yourself a lot of those questions and ask them a lot of questions. Any final thoughts? Any final questions that we can offer maybe to community, to the rest of us? I just wanted to say thank you so much. I know it was just the tip of an iceberg, but hopefully it gave you some ideas and clarity. So thank you. Mucho obrigado. Muchas gracias. I don't speak any other language. I speak German, but that you wouldn't like to hear it. So, thank you. I will stop recording. Everyone who's watching on YouTube, yes, woo, go for it. Now I will probably get